So things are starting to get really weird when it comes to Assassin's Creed Shadows and the overall reception people are having with the game. People are trying to desperately defend this game and figure out any possible way they could try to make the game look good. It doesn't really matter what they say. Even if they know it's ridiculous, they're going to try to find a way to make the game look good. Well, and Debian ended up posting something on Twitter that I thought was pretty interesting from somebody called Evan Loves Wharf, where he goes on a rampage essentially talking about the fact that trans and non-binary was a thing in feudal Japan. I'm not kidding. He is trying to convince people that trans and non-binary was an ideology in feudal Japan and that it existed and that you're essentially all bigots for not believing that it existed. It's honestly insane, ladies and gentlemen, and it basically sparked an idea for a conversation in my mind today that I wanted to talk about regarding Assassin's Creed Shadows, and we're going to read in Demion's response as well, which I thought was pretty funny. So let's get into this video, guys. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, here's the interesting thing about Assassin's Creed Shadows. If we go over to the SteamDB charts, it's not looking good, man. Like, the weekend came, the weekend went, and it's clear that people checked out, right? The game peaked at 64,825 players. This game did not even beat Dragon Age the Veilguard, which was a massive flop for BioWare. We all know that. And this game is being touted as a massive success for Ubisoft, even though it is nowhere near the numbers of a massive failure that killed a studio. This game is even being felted right now by an indie game that nobody even knew was it existing. It's called Schedule 1, I believe, where it's basically a simulator about drugs, which is hilarious. But then that game hit 66,000 concurrent players on Steam, getting absolutely destroyed. Assassin's Creed Shadows has dropped down to now the number 5 in the top sellers list, with an estimated copy sold of anywhere between 250 and 500,000. And again, like I say with every single game, and if you don't believe me, you can check my older videos, this is always high. This number's always high. You're going to see the numbers start to trickle down little by little, and then eventually it's going to kind of flatline at whatever number it may be. But I don't doubt that the game sold well over 200,000 copies on Steam. I mean, if you have 60,000 concurrent players at any given time, then chances are you do have about 200,000 to 250,000 copies sold on Steam. The interest in this game has completely died. It's at 20,000 viewers right now on Twitch, with a 67,700 viewers in a 24-hour peak. They essentially lost damn near almost all of the people that were watching over the last 7 days. So people have made up their mind. They basically moved on, and Assassin's Creed Shadows went from one of the most controversial games to essentially nobody's really giving a fuck anymore. Now, let's go to Demion's post. Let's see what Evan Wharf has to say. So I saw this picture, and I'm like, this can't be real. Come to find out, it seems to be real. Evan Loves Wharf says, trans and non-binary have always existed in Japan, and Yasuke was a real black samurai. So all of the historical inaccuracies in Assassin's Creed, this is not one of them. Wow. Where do I even begin? Trans and non-binary people did not exist in feudal Japan. I don't give a fuck what you say. Trans and non-binary people did not exist in feudal Japan, did not exist in medieval Europe, did not exist in anything. Okay, that was more of a recent thing, right? Obviously, you have what used to be called hermaphrodites, right? That was a thing. You have gay people in history. That was obviously a thing. You're trying to interject modern day ideology into places that it didn't exist and times that it didn't exist, because Assassin's Creed Shadows has Yasuke banging the shit out of a non-binary dude. That's the only reason why you're doing it. But at the end of the day, you know that shit did not exist. You know this shit was not in Japan. In feudal Japan, you know that this did not exist, right? So you're going to have people trying to pretend as if it did. You're going to have people try to lie to everybody about Yasuke being a black samurai when there is no historical evidence whatsoever that says he was definitively a samurai. Absolutely zero. Literally zero. There is nothing. The guy has a paragraph of historical context, and that is literally it. And everything is made up by Thomas Lockley. Literally everything. He is currently on trial in Japan right now for the nonsense he's pulling about revising history. Now, when Demion ends up responding, it says, this is it. This is the most brain-dead take I've seen all month. Congratulations on being so stupid, unironically, that you think this is somehow an own. Somebody tell this guy Yasuke's history was made up to sell some guy's book, and he admitted it was fake only after he made his profits. from shilling his Black Samurai story. At best, the guy was bought by Oda Nobunaga, showed off like a pet, then got sent back to slavers. That's it. Anything beyond that was made up by some white guy author named Thomas Lockley to make money. I can't believe this guy actually posted this as some sort of gotcha. Jesus Christ. Now, I don't know why he would post this as a gotcha, considering it's literally all made up in his head. If you were to ask this guy, hey, provide historical, proof, provide anything that non-binary and trans people existed. And I'm not talking about you thinking that Japanese otokorokos, which are basically femboys, are essentially trans people. That is not the same thing. See, here's the problem. The Westerners are so desperate to see their ideology in everything that they look at other people and what they do and what they practice and try to put themselves in there. So they see femboys who dress up like women, but femboys who will ask, if you ask femboys in Japan, are they men or are they women? They're going to tell you they are men, right? That is the big difference. They will tell you they are men, and they're not going to tell you that they're transitioning to the opposite sex. They're not going to tell you that, because otokorokos are not, that's not what they are. They are femboys, okay? Now, here's the thing. People are clearly calling this shit out as absolute fucking nonsense, right? You got this guy here that says the idea that a modern concept such as being non-binary was present in feudal Japan is anachronistic and silly. Homosexuality is what existed, not being non-binary. If they really want to use that sentence, they should say homosexuality has always existed, as that is a fact. I agree with that. Moreover, I agree with you stating that Yasuke was a samurai categorically as if they were a matter of fact is wrong. I personally lean towards him not being given a title, as that is objectively more probable analysis, but I don't say he definitely wasn't either. It's a lot less likely that he was so I personally don't think he was samurai. With that being said, I think you are also wrong when you say he was just a pet. Paraphrase, he was a weapon bearer for one of the most influential political men in Japan, and that was a position of honor. Among the many outlandish and fantasy statements made by Lockley, the position of honor Yasuke had is not one of them, and I imagine Japanese samurai at court envied that position and is stipend. I highly doubt that Yasuke was ever given the class of being samurai, essentially, because you guys got to understand, when it comes to samurai, that was essentially a class, right? That was something that it's not necessarily like a title. It was more like a class of people that was given and ascended to after enough time and enough work. I don't see how Yasuke, for being there for 15 months total, the guy was there for 15 months, how Assassin's Creed is trying to convince people that after 6 months, not only did he become a samurai, but he became the #1 samurai, essentially. And the guy was basically a one-man army. They're trying to sell this fantastical story of Yasuke that nobody would care about at the end of the day, right? Nobody would care as long as you labeled it as historical fiction. But the simple fact is you didn't, right? Ubisoft marketed this game as historically accurate, right? They didn't say 100% historically accurate, but they still said the game was historically accurate because they were relying on Yasuke being a real name in history for the reason why they wanted to push DEI in feudal Japan. We know they wanted to push DEI in feudal Japan because, quite frankly, you see what they're doing with the non-binary shit. They're interjecting other modern-day ideologies aside from gay people existing. They're pushing that stuff in feudal Japan. So it's very obvious that they had certain ideas that they wanted to get away with in doing in this game, and Yasuke was their ticket in. Yasuke was their ticket. They were thinking, how can we interject a black male lead into this game and get away with it? Oh, and then some random person was like, I know. What about Yasuke? And then the rest was history. So stuff like this is absolutely stupid, ladies and gentlemen, and is doing nothing to help this game. This game is losing players every single day, and it's a long-ass RPG-like game, so there's no reason why it should be losing so many players every single day, and yet it is. 64,825 is the all-time peak for this absolute garbage game, and it's only going to continue to get worse from here as we wait for the inevitable earnings call where they're going to have to admit the truth. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.